And am I correct that when you use the term cyberdelic just a minute ago, I assume that you're speaking to not only technologies that like help that aspect of human cognition or experience flourish, but also in that flourishing produce like states that would be akin to psychedelic type states, or did I miss something there, or is that what you were speaking to?
Yeah, of course, cyberdelics is a term that has been around since the 60s, coined by Timothy Leary. So I think cyberdelics, they do offer other tools in the toolbox, and there are people combining psychedelics with cyberdelics. If you go onto Reddit and you see Rift into the Mind, there's a lot of people combining different medicines with different VR experiences. A lot of people using ketamine, for instance, in combination with VR, because if you preload with something like a dissociative, you're much more likely to believe you're in that game world. So I think that's one of the reasons that people are combining. But I think, yeah, there's we did a big showcase in Melbourne, and it was covered by The Guardian, and everyone was like, this is nothing like psychedelics. And of course, we're not trying to replace psychedelics. I think that we are offering different ways of changing consciousness. And what we're particularly interested in at Cyberdelic Nexus is not just creating altered states, but altered traits. So how do we create lasting change with these technologies? And arguably, we don't change behaviors in a lasting or meaningful way just with one technology. So it's more of what I refer to as holotechnica. It's this idea of stacking. So holo in the Greek means to combine into the whole, and technica is the technique. So it's all the different techniques. And I think you can see three different examples here. So the endo technologies are those technologies that you have internally, like the breathwork, like the meditation, like the hypnosis, all these things that you can do without any external technology. And then you have the traditional medicines, the psychedelics, the entheogens, the dissociatives, etc., representing another group. And then the cyberdelics. And the cyberdelics aren't just VR experiences, they're also sound, flicker lights. So if you imagine a typical holotechnica stack, and I'm writing a book about this and interviewing various people on what are their protocols for reaching lasting change. And if we look at, there's a book on altered traits, and that book's referring to master meditators that have literally changed their frontal lobes have enlarged by basically spending many, many years meditating. And I think a lot of people can do these things, but not a lot of people have that time to dedicate to one science, to one technique. So for me, it's really about realizing that everyone's different. It's very hard to scale any psychedelic therapy because everyone brings different traumas, different life worlds to the party. So I think that it's very much something maybe AI can help us with, which is to personalize those stacks, those techniques, in order to optimize for the individual.
Hmm. Yeah. So what you're saying is something like, okay, safety aside, this is just purely hypothetical. Ketamine in the float tank with like a Lucia light integrated into the lid of the float tank as sort of like stacking for these three things or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And not even that. You can imagine the lid of the float tank being your VR headset, right? Instead of having a headset on, the float tank is the VR space. It is the visual space. If you go against the principle that you really shut off that visual process, and that is so much of the brain is the visual processing. So I think that's why I'm focused in on things like sound primarily as a way of changing consciousness with the Museum of Consciousness. It's a project based at Oxford University, because people come to those shows, they experience 5 different transmissions of sound from 5 different artists. We're like cooking with sound. So imagine a recipe where the ingredients are sound, and then it's the stack of those 5 transmissions put in a specific order to transform consciousness. And People are desperate, it seems, for this deep listening that they're not getting. I think listening is a muscle. It's a practice, and there's so little of it happening. Most people are listening to reply. So the opportunity to come to a venue for 5 or 6 hours, we did a massive 6-hour show in New York, in Brooklyn. People told me New Yorkers won't sit still for 20 minutes, especially on a Sunday, but we had 6-hour show and people love the long form.